You know what helps when you're a board game content creator? When you actually play games. Welcome back to Get This Game, where we're all about the board gaming goodness. I'm Jake, and I feel like I've said this about 8 times in the last couple weeks, but we're back, baby. I mean, like, March was easily the best month of board gaming I've had so far this year. The best month of board gaming I've had in, like, recent memory. Not only was I able to go out to a local board gaming convention, which you saw in my last video, and if you didn't, go check it out, but I was just able to consistently get games to the table. I was playing games on Board Game Arena a bunch of turn-based ones, which I usually suck at because I lose interest and I lose track of everything and then I end up conceding. Don't do that if you can. You don't want to lose that karma. All that's to say is I had a really solid month in the month of March in terms of number of games played and some really solid ones too. And so today we're going to talk about my top 5. If you are just joining us, or if you like my vibe and what I bring to the table, I do encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel, turning on notifications, leave a comment for me. How was your March looking in terms of games played? How is your April looking? Is it looking better, worse? Would love to know and have that conversation. And of course, follow me on my other channels. We've got Get This Game on TikTok, at Get This Board Game on Instagram. And with that said, let's just get into my top 5. Number 5 is going to be the smallest game that we had of the bunch, but no less fun, and that is going to be Push, coming to us from Ravensburger Games. I will disclose, and I feel like I have to give a shout out, Ravensburger gave a copy of Push to every single person at Breakout Con, the local Toronto board gaming convention. Really cool gesture, and really happy that they did, because I probably wouldn't have even gotten this to the table or even thought about it twice if I hadn't. Push Your Luck games are certainly kind of on the rise in the same way that like Trick Taking had its moment in the sun recently. I feel like with games like Flip 7 and even games like Push, I'm kind of predicting a bit of a resurgence here. Push Your Luck just brings such a solid kind of good feeling and excitement to generate around the table, especially when it comes to large groups. And for me, Push was no exception. In Push, you are going to each take a turn with the deck of cards, and you're going to start flipping over cards to create what will ultimately be three piles of cards. The rules are you can't ever have 2 cards of the same number in the same pile or 2 cards of the same color in the same pile. And as you are flipping over cards, you are, of course, getting more likely that you will potentially bust and break one of those 2 rules. It's up to you to decide when you want to stop. And once you do, you're going to choose one of the 3 piles you have now created and add them to your bench, what will ultimately, hopefully, get you to score points at the end of the game. So needless to say, as you're playing through the game, because the total points at the end of the game are going to be the value of the cards printed, you're trying to really beef up one of those piles to be all of your high-cost cards, of course, without going over. After you have chosen a pile, it will then be the next 2 people beside you and next to you who will then get to choose one of the remaining piles. So again, you kind of want to leave them lower cards, as well as maybe some of the additional special cards that are in this deck. You see, if you do bust, what's going to happen is you are going to have to roll the little die that's right here at the top. And when you roll the die, whatever card color is kind of facing up, you are going to have to trash all of the cards that match that color that you have face up in front of you. The cards that are face up in front of you are always at risk to be gone forever. So all the work that you've kind of done to compile all of these points, they could be gone with a simple roll of the die. After that, what you can also have is there are certain cards in the deck that are also die cards. You can actually add those to piles, forcing other players who take those piles to then have to roll the die. Again, risking having to basically take some of their cards out of the game forever. Play will continue around the table. If you ever choose to forego flipping over piles and cards to get more points, you can choose to basically bank all of the cards that are up in front of you. This is the only way to actually protect all of the cards that you have been accruing over time. Yeah, you give up your turn, but you are now banking those points and they will be guaranteed value for you at the end of the game. Push, I thought, was really, really great. I played this at Breakout Con, not only with some kind of core gamers, but this game was also a hit with my family, even though I got some of the rules wrong. I think I'm going to be entering, like I said, my Push My Luck era. I find this type of game really engaging with everyone around the table. They get it. The rules set is pretty easy, but then they also get invested into it as well. You are really wanting to have your luck go that certain way and really push the envelope to just eke out a few more points for yourself. Does that always work out? No, but at the same time, the kind of sore feeling of losing is just sometimes as fun and as silly as actually getting that payoff and getting big points. It's a game that is a crowd pleaser. I'm going to continue playing it. I have a game night with some folks at work coming up. This is going to be a really good fit, I think, in the same way that other games that I've talked about, like Piles, have kind of been hits in large groups. So that was number 5. Push. Going from a high player count game to a 2-player only game, my number 4 for the month is going to be Floristry. This comes to us from Up Games, who did provide me a copy to review, so thank you to Dave and Tim for doing that. Floristry introduces, well, it is a very kind of straightforward tile laying game featuring flowers. We've seen a ton of those out in the market. What is different here is actually how you are going to be collecting those tiles, and you're going to be doing that through a Dutch auction. A Dutch auction is essentially a different type of auction where instead of increasing your bid as you go around the table, you are going to have the bid start very high and slowly tick down over time. And it's up to you to decide when you want to go in and say, okay, the price is low enough or high enough for me to say, hey, that is going to be my bid, and I'm going to then get tiles. How you do this in Floristry is through an app. You're basically going to use the QR code that is found on the back and on the game itself, and you are going to basically get walked through 10 rounds of the game, where you will start with basically cards or the array of tokens that are available in that turn at 5, and as the clock ticks down, the price is going to go from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2. And what ends up happening in this game is this wonderful round of chicken over 10 rounds, because what you're trying to do and work towards is group large clusters of the same colored flower together. The larger the cluster, the more points it will be worth at the end of the game. So while you are thinking about the current kind of crop of tiles that are available to you at that given round, you're thinking about, okay, what do I need to do to kind of increase these clusters for myself? But also, what is my opponent also really trying to go for and grab? And in that comes really the magic of this Dutch auction system. Sometimes you're going to want to overpay just because you don't want that other player to get all of the good stuff that you know is going to equal for a lot of points to them. At the same time, can you edge yourself out and kind of eke it down and have it go just that little bit further so that the tokens become cheaper, so you have to pay less? Because the other factor here is that you'll get bonus points based on how much money you have at the end of the game. So you don't want to overspend, because then you're going to be in trouble there. But wow, there's just like so much actually in this tiny little 2-player only game than actually meets the eye. The theme doesn't do its justice in terms of just how much thinking and decision making is going on here. Once you choose to win an auction, you're going to get to take 3 out of the 4 tiles, while the other player is going to get 1. That's another consideration that you have to keep in mind in terms of how much value you think each round is going to be worth to you. And then you're going to assemble those tiles again into those clusters, and after 10 rounds, you'll count up all the different clusters for the different colors you have, scoring points accordingly, and whoever has the most points wins. Like I said, I don't necessarily play a ton of auction and bidding games as much as I would like, but certainly this introduced a mechanism and a style of auction that I haven't necessarily seen in a ton of other board games. And for me, that really resonated, and I had a lot of fun with it. I was able to test and kind of try out this game at PAX Unplugged last year before it was released. They sent me a copy and I was able to play it with my wife. Again, just a really cool little puzzle here that is going to be getting pretty much done in about 20 minutes, like the box says. I think they're pretty honest with that. So this was a great little one. Before I do a full review, I am going to probably just spend a little bit more time just tinkering with it a little bit, testing it out, seeing the full kind of extent it is, even though it's a pretty small box game. But really good first impressions of Floristry. That's going to be number 4. Number 3 is going to be another small box game. This is Cafe Barras, coming to us from Kids Table Board Games. Now, I've had the pleasure of this being my first ever game from KTBG. As you saw probably in my previous video featuring my full review on this channel right here, KTBG does such a great job of having games that are for families, games that are for kids, but not sticking to it the stigma that necessarily more kiddish or childish games comes. There is enough here that really offers the chance for adults to enjoy it too, even adult hobbyist board gamers. What you're doing in Cafe Barras is playing out cards from your hand in one of 2 ways. Number 1, you can play them down to kind of fill your tableau, adding new menu items and decorations to your cafe, as it were, and each of them are going to have a corresponding symbol. Sometimes you'll play a coffee item, you'll play a tea item, a soup item, a pastry pastry item, etc. The other thing that you can do is play a card down to serve a customer. Every single card in the game is going to have a row of different symbols and combinations, and you're going to play it down and see what symbols you have in your array and in your tableau that match that specific order from that customer. You'll get $1 every time that you do match one of those symbols, allowing you to play more cards on future turns. And if you completely match all of the symbols on the card, as well as have a piece of decoration that matches the customer's preferred decoration, they will become a recurring customer, an ongoing customer that will be worth more points at the end of the game. And once somebody has 3 returning customers in the game, well, that's going to trigger the end game, and then you'll count up all of the cards and points that you've accrued in your tableau, and whoever has the most wins. Like I said, I wasn't really super jazzed about this game when I first heard it announced and came out. I was like, oh, that's a nice little idea, but there's probably not enough there for me to have the theme be enough for me to be attracted to the game. Well, it did get plopped down in front of me at Breakout Con, and I was really surprised by just how much I enjoyed it. The fact that you do have those dual purpose cards and you have to make a decision on what cards you're going to use for your tableau, which ones you want to keep and use for serving customers. I really liked that kind of dichotomy that was going on there. Weird to say dichotomy in a game like this where it takes about 20 minutes to play, but I digress. This was a lot more game for me than I certainly expected. It's not going to be knocking the doors down by any reason or by any means, but still had a pretty good time with it, and there was more than meets the eye for this game. So if you want to check out more about it and a more in-depth kind of look at everything, the gameplay, the presentation, the fun factor, etc., go watch my full review. But my number 3 game of the month of March was Cafe Bars. Okay, enough thinking small. Now we're going big, starting off with Rock Hard 1977 from Devere Games. Picked this one up at PAX Unplugged. It's been sitting on our shelf for a while. We finally got the chance to play it, and I feel like late to the party, I guess, a little bit, as it were. I feel like when this game was first launched, it was all the rage. Everyone was talking about how cool the theme was, the fact that it was designed by Jackie Fox, the bass player for The Runaways, a famous band from like the 70s and 80s. The fact that you get to kind of live out your rock star fantasy, that the production was great. And frankly, Devere has kind of been like hitting it out of the park with all of these really highly touted games that everyone seems to like be locked into. So needless to say, I was really excited. I'm a very theme-forward gamer, and so the fact that you can pick a special kind of rock star, fledgling rock star, enter into their world, try to get it signed a record deal, try to play some shows, try to do all the little extracurriculars everywhere in between, really appealed to me. Like all the different kind of combinations and unique powers here. The production here is 10 out of 10, absolutely as well. Here, in case you didn't know, basically, you're going to be doing all of the actions that I just said and simulate those through worker placement actions. You have kind of a day phase, a night phase, and a hangout phase, and there will be different opportunities and places for your worker to go during each of those phases. Think viticulture in that sense, but you're only working with one worker. It is a kind of first come, first serve system, so player and turn order definitely does matter. And as you go through, again, you're going to be doing all the things to kind of build up your own kind of skills and sets of what you need to be a rock star through some of the different actions you can take. You'll then perform shows if you've met those kind of certain thresholds of skills and kind of notoriety. You'll get to play bigger venues and get access to those spaces later. And then the hangout phase helps you determine player order, as well as do a bit of set collection of different experiences as you kind of go to different bars, go to hang out with people, and kind of build up different experiences that kind of tell your rock star story. Now, there's so much in this game that kind of speaks to me as a gamer. Like I said, everything is very theme forward. Everything is very on theme, as well as the different kind of unique powers that each manager brings you. The manager cards that you'll be drafting and will give you special powers throughout the game. The Rockstar itself, there's a ton included in the box, and each of them have a certain kind of unique power that you'll get to leverage as well. All of those are like, yes, that hits on exactly what I look for in a gamer. Now, where I see this maybe petering out for me, and possibly why I think some of the hype has died down, is after you get a few plays in this, I have a feeling that it's going to have an optimization problem in that the early turns, especially, you really have the one specific route you have to go down and exactly which worker placement spots you need to visit to be optimal in your turn, to not fall behind compared to your other rock stars. And in that way, I worry that the game is kind of railroading you a little bit down a certain path where each game is really just a new iteration of you following that same path in those same veins. Yes, you have different asymmetric player powers, the kind of starting jobs that you have, and the combination of managers and other skills that you start off with are going to change game to game. But I worry that the game itself just might be a little bit one note to use maybe a little bit of a pun there. I'm not passing judgment on it just yet. I still have a lot more game to explore here. I did play it at 2. I think playing it at 3 or higher player counts is also going to help feed into some of the player interaction and kind of what spots get taken up. I'm hoping that kind of factors it in for me. But I do kind of, in the back of my mind, worry that the game is pretty kind of like on driving you down, again, a certain path as opposed to giving you the opportunity to win the game and take different strategies in a lot of different ways. That's my first kind of crack at it and pass at it. Again, only one play in, but it still stuck out just because, again, it is so theme forward and it does such a good job of kind of bringing together and that theme out into how you're actually playing the game. So number 2, Rock Hard 1977, definitely more thoughts on this to come. And my number 1 game from the month of March isn't here. And if it was, I'm sure it would just about take up the entire table because it's Galactic Cruise, a game that just kind of fulfilled on Kickstarter, got a lot of hype, got the chance to see it at PAX Unplugged as well, and one of my friends at Breakout Con ended up having a copy, and we were able to get a game in late into the night. Galactic Cruise, essentially, you are the manager of a cruise line that is going in space instead of on the water. What happens here is you're basically going to be using worker placement to visit different actions. And when doing so, you're going to be able to discover new technologies that will help you in your quest. You're going to be creating new spaceships and actually filling them with different amenities that will attract one of the 3 different types of customers that can come to your ship. You're going to do some marketing potentially to attract those customers onto your cruise. And then ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to fire off into space, going on different cruises with your different ships, making stops along the way for additional benefits as you go. That just scratches the surface of everything that's going on here and how that's actually being executed. There is a lot to this game, to the point that people that were passing by the table and saw it and were asking about it thought this was a Vital Lacerda title. And I can see why it kind of evokes some of that feeling. It is meaty, it is complex, and there is a lot that you have to manage in terms of the different resources that you need to have before you can actually blast off, having enough water, food, and supplies, and space fuel. You also have to worry about making sure that you have enough staff and that everything's kind of covered off when you actually blast into space. There are these very special kind of like directive cards that are big swings and very important in the game that can basically enhance or augment the other types of actions that you can take through that worker placement system. The other thing I'll mention here that I was a fan of is all of the kind of core worker action sections and segments. They get randomized game in, game out. There are cards that you put down that will kind of open up those opportunities. There's also this mechanic where basically as you're going through, you can also place some of your separate kind of tokens or cubes down, and they go in between the different sections of different worker placement actions. And what that does is it opens up new opportunities for you to take with your worker placement, even if somebody else is covering up a space that you want to go to. Basically, you're placing an action in between two, or a worker in between 2 actions, and you can take either one of those. But if you have a kind of a train and track and trail between additional actions connecting to those, well, then you have the option of taking those actions as well. So figuring out how to optimize that sort of puzzle is also going to be really crucial in the game, because you want to get to the point where you can really do anything and aren't limited just by what spaces are available on the board. I had mixed emotions about this one kind of coming out of my first play of it. I certainly saw everything in terms of its merit as a really hardcore Euro-style game. Worker placement, doing your own thing, really not having too much interaction outside of the worker placement spaces that you're going, and all the different levers that you really have to turn and crank and pay attention to. That was all there, and I totally saw the merit for it. For me, it was just a matter of, is this the type of kind of mechanism and the type of game that is for me? I can like a game, but it not necessarily be the strongest fit for me. And I can't really put my finger exactly on what it is. I think it's just a matter of kind of more light to mid heavyweight Euros versus heavy Euros being my thing. But at the same time, I can't help but be thinking about it all the time, since kind of having that initial play and thinking, boy, I'd love another crack at that. Boy, I'd love to get another chance to try it out and play it. So after reflecting on it, it really was my number one game of the month, not only because frankly, it's probably the most mechanically sound and mechanically complex and interesting game that I played last month, but also my desire to get it back to the table and to try it again and to really figure out if it is going to be ultimately a game for me in the long term. That scratches the itch and is just enough, I think, to warrant it being the number one game of the month. So those were my top 5 for the month of March. Again, just such an absolute banger of a month after an extremely slow February. Happy to say that I am back and we're going to be pumping out a few more reviews. I have some in the hopper. They're going to be coming to you soon. Again, please do consider subscribing if you liked the chat today. Turn on notifications, leave a comment about what you got to the table in March, and if you have any thoughts about many of the games that I played today. A lot of them are kind of older titles relatively in the board gaming world, so I'd love to know what your thoughts on them are. Follow me on TikTok at GetThisGame. Follow me on Instagram at GetThisBoardGame. And as always, thanks for playing with me.